Hypnotizing the Chupacabra, or better known in English as the FANBOYS rule. This is dealing with 1 comma. Before we actually get to this, let's do a review of 1 comma in general. The golden rule, which we learned, is called the abandoned boxcar concept. It's an independent clause, a comma, and then a dependent clause. The dependent clause is like a miniature definition of the word that will come right before that comma. That's the golden rule when you see 1 comma. FANBOYS is the exception to that rule. Basically, you're going to connect 2 independent clauses together with a comma. The second independent clause here will start off with your FANBOYS. Jimmer is tall and clumsy. That's an independent clause. Here is our comma. Yet, that's our FANBOYS. He is a great athlete. That's an independent clause. Sometimes these words are a little bit tricky and it makes it feel like the second clause is a dependent clause or fragment. My recommendation is after the comma, if you see one of these words, just simply try and put your finger over that word and then read the clause. He is a great athlete. Right away, that you know is an independent clause or a complete sentence. Yet he is a great athlete. You see how that just feels like, is that a sentence? Is that an independent clause? Just put your finger over that word. Let's take a look at the application of this to a real ACT question. Problem number 69. At first glance, when you look at this problem, you think that this is a vocabulary problem or a use your ears concept because in the answer choices, you don't see any of our FANBOYS words. But if you look over here, problem number 69 is located right here, and the beginning of the sentence is way up here. If you look here, you see up here is a comma, and we start with the FANBOYS on the second part. Now, here's what I do. To make this easy, since this is already used correctly, this helps us not only with 69, but also 68. When you go from here to here at cycle, you know that this has to be an independent clause. So that's going to help you answer problem 68, because some of these answer choices may not actually be independent clauses when you use one of these choices. The second thing is when you see this comma here, we already know that this second clause in the FANBOYS or Hypnotizing the Chupacabra concept has to also be an independent clause. So what do I do? After I answer problem number 68 independently, that first part has to be an independent clause. Then what I do is I simply just cross this out because you know that this is already correct and that this already has to be an independent clause. So that means it's less reading for us to do. When we come over here and start with this, all the way to the period here, it has to be an independent clause. Remember, as I mentioned earlier, since we're starting with a FANBOYS, if we think of just kind of crossing this out, when we read this, it's a little bit easier for your ears to see which one of them is a complete sentence. Let's go ahead, give it a try. Come over here, we take a look at answer choice A. A says highly well-tuned in system. Let's go ahead and read it. We have to have a complete sentence or an independent clause when we plug in answer choice A. If we don't, it's crossed out. Abrupt time zone changes can understandably upset the body's highly well-tuned in system of regulation. It's not a complete sentence or independent clause. We go in and take a look at answer choice C next. Come over here. Abrupt time zone changes can understandably upset the body's highly tuned well system of regulation. That's also not an independent clause. Sounds like a fragment, also clunky. We come over here now, let's go ahead and check a look at answer choice D. Abrupt time zone changes can understandably upset the body's high system of regulation. It sounds a little bit weird. It still is an independent clause. This sounds weird. And now we go ahead and plug in answer choice B. Abrupt time zone changes can understandably upset the body's well-tuned system of regulation. Boom. We got out the two clauses that were fragments or dependent clauses. Then we put a dot by the two answer choices and we converted which one sounded better. Answer choice B, you saw two techniques here. Cross out that first independent clause. Go ahead and put your finger over the fanboys. It's so much easier for your ears to see when we have A, less reading, and B, when we get the fanboys out of there. 69B, kids. Hypnotizing the Chupacabra, or FANBOYS.